Hi guys, welcome back. I hope everyone is doing good and I hope you are enjoying as well as learning from news in 30 minutes. So today on the 22nd of November 2023, let us look at some of the important issues of the day. The first issue is to do with sickle cell anemia. Okay, this is a genetic disorder, and this majorly affects the tribal population in India. Okay, and also the sickle cell anemia, according to the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, okay, around 8.7% of the total population suffers from sickle cell anemia. Okay, that is significant amount of population, and according to the ministry, around 30,000 to 40,000 children that are born every year, suffer from sickle cell anemia. Okay, so this is though it is a rare disease, however the prevalence of this disease in India is very high. Okay, now what is sickle cell anemia? Sickle cell anemia is, as I told you, a genetic disorder. Since it's a genetic disorder, it is passed on or inherited from one generation to another. Okay, so what is the problem? The problem is basically the red blood cells. Okay, the problem is the red blood cells, which are usually rounded, and flexible. The red blood cells that are rounded and flexible, people who suffer from sickle cell anemia, these red blood cells becomes crescent shaped. Okay, and one, it becomes crescent or sickle shape, as well as it becomes rigid. Okay, now the main job of RBC is to carry oxygen. Alright, now because it becomes a sickle shape and rigid, the oxygen carrying capacity is reduced. And because it is rigid, the flow of the blood is not so smooth. The blood flow is blocked at several places because it becomes rigid. So this will create a lot of pain. Okay, now the average life expectancy of a person suffering from sickle cell anemia is somewhere at 50 years. This is very low. Okay, and as I told you, this significantly affects the tribal population in India. So if I take the tribal population, almost 40% of the tribal population will suffer from sickle cell anemia. Okay, because it is so prevalent in India, the government of India has come up with something called National Sickle Cell Anemia Mission. Okay, according to this National Sickle Cell Anemia Mission, we have to eliminate the genetic transfer. Okay, we have to eliminate the genetic transmission of sickle cell anemia by 2047. Okay, that is the mission of National Sickle Cell Anemia Mission. Okay, we have to eliminate the genetic transmission of sickle cell by 2047. Okay, so this is the overall background about this disease. The reason why I am telling you good news is, as you can see in the heading, conquering sickle cell anemia using CRISPR. Okay, the Victoria Gray's story. She is the first woman or the first patient to completely get recovered from sickle cell anemia. This is a very good news for all the patients, especially in India, and also it will set the precedent for other genetic disorders that people are suffering from. Okay, now how did this cure happen? It happened because of gene therapy. Okay, it happened because of CRISPR. Okay, I know that many people have heard about this CRISPR, but let me now go into the details of what this is all about. Okay, so Victoria Gray's sickle cell anemia was cured with the help of a gene editing technique or therapy, and that gene editing therapy is known as CRISPR Cas9. Okay, this gene editing therapy that uses CRISPR Cas9 technology is what helped cure sickle cell anemia. This is the first case, and this will obviously set the precedence for using this technology for other genetic disorders. Okay, so your job is to learn what are the different genetic disorders that are prevalent in human population. That is one thing that you should learn. That is how you always go back to the statics. Now, to give you an idea of what is this CRISPR. Okay, so the full form of CRISPR is clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats and associated proteins. Okay, that associated proteins is Cas9. Okay, so I hope this is the full form, CRISPR. Okay, so this is the technology. Now to understand this technology, let me just show you a few images. Now look, first understand how DNA editing is done. If you understand how DNA editing is done, then you can overlap this CRISPR Cas9 on this DNA editing. Okay, so first understand how this gene editing or DNA editing is done. Now look at this diagram. If you can see, within a cell you will always have a nucleus, and inside the nucleus you will always have the chromosomes. So inside the cell there is nucleus, and inside the nucleus there is chromosome, and inside the chromosome you will find this helix, and this helix is known as a DNA. Okay, now this is the overall biological setup. I hope you understood what is the cell, what is a nucleus, and what is a chromosome. A chromosome, within that, will have a helix structure known as a DNA. Okay, now look at this diagram. In this diagram, this is the DNA, that is something that we have to cut and we have to remove and edit. Okay, so first we have to search, then we have to cut, and then we have to replace. Okay, so keep these three things in mind. First we have to search for that gene that we are looking for, then we have to cut it, and then we have to replace it. Okay, now look at this. There are three things that is required for us to perform a gene editing. Okay, so when we take gene editing or DNA editing, gene editing, there are three things that are important. See, one is guide molecule, another is healthy DNA copy, another is DNA cutting enzyme. Okay, so this guide molecule is what will perform the search function for us. Okay, this will perform the search function. Once we have searched, this DNA cutting enzyme is the one that will cut, and this healthy DNA is what we will replace. So I hope you understood this. There is guide molecule, there is healthy DNA copy, and then there is DNA cutting enzymes. So gene editing will always use these three tools. Okay, now let me just link what is CRISPR and Cas9. When I take a guide molecule, okay, this guide molecule, as I told you, guide molecule is basically to search for the DNA part that we have to replace, or for the gene we have to replace. That is done by CRISPR. Okay, that is done by CRISPR. And then the DNA cutting enzyme, the one that cuts that part of the DNA which we have to replace, is Cas9. Okay, so Cas9 is the protein that cuts the DNA part. So this is known as molecular scissors. It is known as molecular scissors. Okay, so the searching part is done by the guide molecule, which in this part becomes CRISPR. This is the guiding molecule, and this is the cutting scissors. Okay, so this will search and this will cut, and then we will replace it with an healthy copy of the DNA. Okay, so I hope you understand the working. If you understand this, and now if you look at the image, it becomes very easy. Okay, so I hope you understood this. Let me just remove all these things so that you can pause the video and then look at it. However, I'll just go through it. See how the technique works is, you understood that inside the cell there is nucleus. Inside the nucleus you have chromosomes, and within the chromosomes you have DNA. Now a specifically designed synthetic guide molecule finds the target DNA. This is done basically by CRISPR. Okay, a synthetically designed guide molecule which will find the DNA strand. An enzyme cuts the target DNA strand. This is what is the Cas9. The Cas9 protein, look at this, the DNA cutting enzyme. So the cutting is done here. So it cuts this, the defective DNA strand is removed, and then a healthy strand is replaced. Okay, so we searched, we cut, and then we replaced. So this is what is gene editing technique. So we use CRISPR to search, and we use Cas9 to cut, and then we replace it with the healthy DNA strand. The defective DNA strand is replaced with healthy copy, and this is how we overcome the genetic disorder. We are replacing that malfunctioning gene with an healthy gene. Okay, so this is how it works. Now I'll show you another image. Now this will become even more clear. CRISPR Cas9 is a unique technology that enables editing parts of the genome by removing, adding or altering sections of the DNA. Okay, see, guide RNA guides Cas9 to the right part of the genome. Okay, look at this. This is the guide RNA. Okay, this will guide it to the proper part. This is the part that it is searching for. Okay, after searching there, see, it is the Cas9 enzyme that acts as a molecular scissor. Okay, as you can see, Cas9 enzyme acts as a molecular scissor. So you can see that cutting happening. So it cuts this, and then we are going to replace it with a new healthy copy of the gene. Okay, so three things: search, cut, edit. So I hope you got clarity of what this CRISPR Cas9 gene editing technology has helped overcome the sickle cell anemia. This is a very good precedence for India, because most of our burden of genetic disorders falls in the realm of sickle cell anemia. Okay, so this is a good news for India, and I hope that this technology paves way for other genetic disorders as well as autoimmune diseases that we are seeing on the rise, especially in the world and also in India. So I hope this technology helps in a positive way to improve the health of many, as India is also a young demography. This plays a very important role, that our youth should not suffer from diseases, because that will help, that will make the country country less productive. Okay, the country becomes less productive and the country has to spend more on the healthcare. So such technologies that will remove the genetic disorders will automatically make our youth more productive, more energetic, and that in turn will obviously reflect the growth in its trajectory of growth. Okay, so this is overall about this about this particular article. The next article, let us go to the next issue. The next issue is a issue that is talking about the Indo-China relationship. Okay, this article is mainly talking about the Indo-China relationship. Okay, so let us just read what this article tells. India should not talk to China even if Biden talks to the Chinese premier. Okay, the reason why this author is telling this is the Quad partners, which includes India, which includes USA, which includes Japan and Australia. Okay, the Quad partners have what they are trying to create, or they are trying to hold a high level political engagement, with China. Okay, you should not forget that the Quad was formed in order to counter China. However, the other partners have decided that they will break the ice and they will engage in political and economic dialogues with China. The reason is because they are heavily dependent on China, and they cannot sideline China to such an easy extent. So we are seeing USA is also expanding its engagement with China in different ways. Biden is trying to talk with the Chinese premier in several summits that is happening. However, though USA is trying to extend its hand to China to improve its engagement, the author says that India should not try to engage with China just because USA is doing so. The reason why it is important is India has taken a stand that in India-China relationship, the state of the relationship of India and China, depends upon the state of the border. Okay, so what it tells is, if we have to improve our relationship overall between India and China, first we have to overcome our border disputes, and we have to come to a common ground where we do not have such intrusions into our border. So India has kind of linked its border management or its border protection as one of the precedents or priority in defining the relationship of India and China. Okay, so this actually is very important for India to always consider this stand. So the author also tells that we have to not withdraw from this stand. Now, why does the author say that we have to not withdraw from this stand? Okay, the author gives 4 reasons. The 4 reasons why the author says that India should not withdraw from the stand of giving priority to border issues. The first stand is India's territorial challenge. India's territorial challenge is far more intense, and the scale of border issue is very high. Okay, the scale of border issue is very high. So what the author is trying to tell is, if we compare USA, okay, or if we compare Japan, or if we compare Australia, these do not have direct territorial challenge. Okay, they do not have direct territorial challenge. The challenge that these countries face is indirect compared to India. So since India faces a direct territorial challenge with China, hence India's stand should be independent compared to its Quad partners. Okay, it should not be in line with Quad partners, but it should be independent. Okay, it should be independent of Quad partners. That is the first point that the author makes. The second is, the author also substantiates telling India has not always followed Quad, especially in its policies regarding China. It has not always followed the Quad's policies regarding China. For this, the author says or gives example that India has not joined the freedom of navigation operations in Western Pacific. Okay, so this freedom of operation is something that was initiated by the Quad members. Okay, however, India did not take part in this freedom of navigation operations in Western Pacific. So this shows that India should not always, or India need not always align with Quad policies. India can also take its independent stand. Okay, that is the second argument. The third argument that the author says is, just by renewing economic as well as political engagement, with China, okay, this will only normalize Chinese aggression. So they will keep on trying to intrude, or they'll keep on trying to invade into our border territory. Okay, if we keep considering this as just one skirmish, and if we keep forgiving them, this aggression will start becoming normalized issue. We will keep seeing such border skirmishes happening in time. So the third thing that the author says is, you are just normalizing Chinese aggression if we start renewing the economic and political engagement. The fourth one that the author says is the relative rise of India. The relative rise of India in international system. Okay, India has to take advantage of this. Okay, India cannot bog down to China. Why the author says India has risen in recent time is, if you see, India has come up with Indo-Pacific economic framework. This is to create a supply chain that is not dependent on China. India has also expanded its BRICS summit, the BRICS organization, to include countries from South America, from Africa and West Asia. India recently finished its G20 presidency, which was very successful, which was also able to bring a joint statement that all the countries agreed. India also brought Africa into the G20 ambit. So if you look at this, India is also becoming, or India is currently the fifth largest economy, and it is set to become the third largest economy by 2027 according to IMF. Okay, so all these reasons point to the relative rise of India, and taking this strategic rise as an advantage, India must always try to counter China and not bog down to China's aggression. That is the fourth point that the author makes. Okay, so to summarize, because USA is trying to normalize relation with China, that doesn't mean India should also normalize relation with China. Quad partners have a completely different alignment and interests compared to India. Why? One, India should not align with China because India's territorial challenge is very different from Quad partners' challenge. Second, India has not always aligned with Quad, especially in the policies with China. Example, it did not take part in the freedom of navigation operations in Western Pacific. The third, renewing the economic and political engagement will only normalize Chinese aggression in the future as well. And the fourth is India's rise in the global world should be taken advantage of in order to make sure that it counters China. So with these four reasons, the author says that India should not go by, or India should not withdraw from its stand that the state of relationship between India and China will depend upon the state of the border as well. Okay, so India must retain this stand and should also press on improving its border relationship first before it engages politically and economically. Okay, so this is the article, very beautifully written. I hope this analysis can be used in your mains answer, especially in GS2 of international relation. Okay, the question in international relation usually is more analytical based. So such perspectives are very important rather than enumeration of facts. So in international relations, perspectives play a very important role in getting more marks. So I hope you got this. Okay, so let us go to the next issue of the day. The next issue is, which countries recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization? See, why is this news coming is, Israel has designated Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Toiba, a terrorist group that carried out the 26/11 attacks, as terrorist organization. India does not recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization on a handful of countries around the world. So basically what Israel has done is, Israel has just named the Lashkar-e-Toiba as the terrorist organization. Okay, now it has created this to create a nudge. Okay, it is trying to nudge India to declare Hamas as terrorist organization. Okay, it is just a influence trying to nudge or influence India into declaring Hamas as terrorist organization. So what is this declaring or designation of an organization as terrorist organization, and how does it happen is what we'll discuss now. Okay, before I discuss how does it happen in India, let me just tell you, one, India is not recognizing, or it has not designated, not recognized or not designated Hamas as terrorist organization. It has not, so don't get confused. Okay, what India did is, when there was a Hamas raid, in South Israel, when this raid happened, the Indian government criticized, the Indian government criticized this attack as terrorist attack. It criticized this attack as terrorist attack. However, India still stands for two-state solution. India still stands for two-state solution. Okay, so India does not see Hamas as a terrorist organization. It has not yet designated it. It just called the raid of Hamas in South Israel as attack, that is a terrorist attack, and it criticized that attack as a terrorist attack, but it has not designated Hamas as a terrorist organization. Okay, so if we take Hamas, okay, this is a group in Gaza Strip. This is in control of the Gaza Strip of Palestine. Okay, and there is one more strip of Palestine called West Bank. Okay, and this strip of Palestine, okay, this is another part of Palestine, and this is handled by Al-Fatah. Okay, so basically Hamas, what Israel is expecting is, because of the recent raid, the Hamas raid, Israel wants India to assign Hamas as terrorist organization. Okay, currently if you take Hamas including Israel, okay, including Israel plus European Union, you have six more countries that have termed Hamas as terrorist organization. Those six countries are Australia, Canada, UK, USA plus Japan. See, all these are kind of same block countries. They are all English countries, and these nations always abide by what USA tells. Okay, so if you can take the queue, Israel along with European Union, with Australia, Canada, UK, USA, Japan, all these countries together have designated Hamas as terrorist organization. With this, one another country that has designated it is Paraguay. Okay, Paraguay has also designated Hamas as the terrorist organization. So you have six countries plus European Union plus Israel itself. So you have totally 8 countries. Okay, sorry, 7 countries and one regional organization. Okay, so these are the ones that have termed Hamas as terrorist organization. Okay, now if I come to Indian context, you have a law called Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967, that is UAPA Act 1967. So the government, under this law, section 1 of this law allows the government to designate any organization as terrorist organization. The moment the government designates this as terrorist organization, this organization will have a range of curb that will happen. That range of curb will include, one, freezing of its assets, and the second is seizure of or seizing of all its properties. So the assets and properties will become immovable, and it comes into the control of the government. Okay, and the government constantly monitors their actions. Okay, and currently in under UAPA 1967 first schedule, currently under the first schedule, India has 44 organizations. India has 44 organizations that are designated as terrorist organization. Okay, the facts are very important because it's becoming more and more factual in prelims. Hence, even when I am telling, I am trying to focus more on the facts, so that in prelims also, when they ask, they're asking more factual rather than conceptual. So you should have an eye for all these facts. Okay, so this is in the Indian context of an organization is designated as terrorist organization. Okay, and what happens when they designate it as terrorist organization? So to summarize, overall Hamas is still not recognized as a terrorist organization or designated as terrorist organization under UAPA Act. Okay, so this is what this particular article is talking about. Though we have got the nudge from Israel, India is yet to take a stand. However, India will not take a stand because India's stand with respect to Israel-Palestine conflict is always a two-state solution. So it always wants peace, and it always wants two states both recognizing and respecting each other's territorial integrity, and this has always been the stand of India. So with this, we are done with this issue. The next issue is a very good news again for India, because we are able to find a very rare metal called tantalum. Okay, and this tantalum was found in the sands of Sutlej River. Okay, it was found in the sands of Sutlej River. Okay, now what is this metal? Okay, again I told you it is a very valuable metal. If I tell very valuable, what is this? Why is it so valuable? Okay, one, you should know that it is a rare metal with an atomic number of 73. Again, the facts are important for prelims, hence I am focusing on this. It is a rare metal with an atomic number of 73. Atomic number means obviously the number of protons in the nucleus. Okay, the next is it is gray. Okay, and it is hard, and it is corrosion resistant. Okay, it is corrosion resistant, that is, it does not get rusted very easily. This is very, very important. Okay, the next tantalum is basically ductile. When I say ductile, it can be easily stretched, it can be easily pulled, and it can easily be drawn to make wires, a very thin wire that can look like a thread. Okay, that is another function of ductile. The next is it is completely immune. Okay, it is completely immune to chemical attacks. It is completely immune to chemical attacks. The reason is, it is completely immune to chemical attacks. The reason is because of its insolubility in acids. Okay, its insolubility in acids. Except acid solutions. Except acid solutions containing fluoride and sulfur trioxide. Except it having fluoride and sulfur trioxide, all the other acids, it is very, very immune to this chemical attacks. Okay, hence it is insoluble in most of the acids, not all the acids, in most of the acids, especially in solutions at less than 150 degrees. Okay, at less than 150 degrees, this tantalum is highly resistant and insoluble to most of the acids. That's a very, very good property. Okay, the next is another important property that it has is it has extremely high melting point. It has extremely high melting point. Okay, this melting point is so high that it is exceeded. It is exceeded only by tungsten. It is exceeded only by tungsten. Okay, and it is exceeded by rhenium. Okay, it has such high melting point. Okay, the last is these are some of, let me get to the applications at the last. Now let me just give you the summary. One, the tantalum that was found in the Sutlej River sands. This is very, very important strategic for India, because first let us just summarize the properties of this rare metal called tantalum. One, its atomic number is 73. It is gray, hard, and corrosion resistant. It is ductile, that means it can be stretched, pulled, and drawn to create wires as thin as thread. Okay, then it is completely immune to chemical attacks because of its insolubility in acid solutions. its insolubility in acid solutions to most of the acid solutions, especially less than 150 degrees centigrade, it is completely immune. And the only acid solutions that it becomes soluble is fluoride and sulfur trioxide acid solutions. Apart from that, it is immune to most of the chemical attacks or acid solutions. Apart from this, it has a very high melting point, which is again an advantage which I'll tell you in a few seconds, and its melting point is high. It can only be exceeded by tungsten and rhenium. Okay, so these are some of the properties of tantalum. Now if you take the application of tantalum, again this application becomes very important. One, it can be used in portable electronic devices. It can be used in portable electronic devices like smartphones, like laptops. Okay, it can be used in cameras. So why is it that they can be used in portable electronic devices? It is the capacitors made of tantalum. The capacitors that are made up of tantalum, these are small. They can hold more energy. Okay, so if they are small and they can hold more energy, obviously they can create more and more portable electronic devices. I hope you understood. Compared to normal capacitors, which are relatively larger because they want more size, more the energy that it can store. But here, these capacitors of tantalum, they can be small and still hold more energy. That is an advantage of having tantalum. So if you want to create more portable electronic devices, you need metals like tantalum. Okay. The second property was high melting point. Okay. So because it has high melting point, now it can substitute for a metal called platinum. Now this platinum is very costly. Okay. Because it is very costly, now tantalum can replace platinum, and this tantalum can be used in nuclear power plants, okay, in chemical plants, okay, in missiles. See, nuclear power plants, there will be very high temperature. Because it has high melting point, it can withstand this high temperature. Chemical plants will have acidic solution, and we know that because tantalum is insoluble in acidic solution and is less corrosive, this can be used in chemical plants also. Okay, so that is the next application. Because of its high melting point, it can be used in nuclear power plants also. It can be used in chemical plants also. It can be used in the manufacture of missiles, aeroplanes as well. Okay, that is the next advantage. The third application is because it is stable and it does not react. Because it is stable and it does not react with bodily fluids. It does not react with bodily fluids. We can use this to develop surgical equipments, as well as we can use this to develop implants that are implanted inside human body. Okay, so these are some of the applications of tantalum. As you know, this is very, very important for prelims. They can ask you indirectly what are the applications, and the applications will be very, very specific. So if they're asking you these implants can be done in the heart, these implants can be done in the knee, you should not get confused. They are very stable in bodily fluids, hence these implants can be done in different places. Okay, so this is about the application. Finally, a scientific group in USA has told that a composite, this is the fourth application. So we are done with the first one, the second one, and the third one. The fourth application is the scientific group in USA has told that a composite that will consist of tantalum carbide, a composite that consists of tantalum carbide, that's known as TAC, plus graphite. Composite means mixing two different compounds together to create a complex compound. That is what is composite. So tantalum carbide plus graphite. Okay, if we mix this, we will get one of the hardest known material. Okay, obviously it is not as hard as diamond, but it is one of the hardest known material. So what it can do, it can replace those functions that are done by diamond. As diamond is very costly, we can use this to replace this, and this can help in cutting different different streams. It can act as cutting technology. Okay, so these are some of the applications of tantalum. So finding this tantalum is a very, very important and strategic advantage for India, and you learned the properties of tantalum and you also learned the applications. To summarize the application, it can be used in portable electronic devices as it is a small capacitor that can hold more energy. Because of its high melting point, it can be used in nuclear power plants, it can be used in missiles, and because of it being less corrosive and more stable in acidic solution, it can be used in chemical plants. And because it is stable and less reactive in bodily fluids, it can be used in surgical equipments as well as implants. And finally, the composite of tantalum carbide with graphite creates a very hard material that can replace diamond in cutting technologies. Okay, so these are some of the applications of tantalum. Okay, now like this, whenever there is a mineral that is in news, for example, lithium was found in Jammu and Kashmir, so you have to learn the properties of these minerals as well as the applications of it. That is how you have to always go from the issue back to the static. Okay, so this completes this issue. The next issue is a parochial law on Haryana's 75% quota to locals in private sector. Okay, now the author says states need to implement labor rights uniformly and not rely on protectionism. Okay, basically this is talking about the son of the soil doctrine. The son of the soil doctrine. Okay, so what happened is there was a law that was brought by Haryana called Haryana State Employment of Local Candidates Act 2020. Okay, this was brought out by Haryana. Now according to this, 75% of the reservation, 75% of reservation of those jobs that have less than or equal to 30,000 rupees per month salary, those jobs that have less than or equal to 30,000 per month salary, these jobs, 75% of them must be reserved to local population. Okay, so this is what is this particular act. There was one more, that all these private companies must on a quarterly basis designate, provide a report on the status of this reservation to the Haryana government. Okay, Haryana government. Alright, so there were two parts in this. One, it will provide reservation to those jobs in private sector. Okay, don't forget, in those jobs in the private sector. Okay, not government sector, in the private sector, of all those jobs that have less than or equal to 30,000 per month to local population, 75% must be given, and the private companies must submit a quarterly report to the government on the status of the reservation that is done. Okay, the Haryana High Court has squashed this particular law. Okay, the High Court of Punjab and Haryana have squashed this particular act, and the reason why it has squashed is it has given four reasons. One, it has told that whatever act is there, that is beyond the purview of the state. It is beyond the purview of the state. Okay. The second is it tells that it violates Article 14. This is right to equality. Okay, Article 14, that is right to equality. Then you have Article 19. Okay, within Article 19 of 1, you have one of the subsections that allow every worker to move freely throughout India. Okay, again, that violates Article 19 and Article 14. So that is the second aspect that the High Court has told. The third aspect that the High Court has told is such acts will end up creating artificial walls. Such acts will end up creating artificial walls throughout India. It creates artificial walls throughout India. Okay, and the fourth that the High Court has told or pointed out is this act will result in the creation of Inspector Raj, because the private companies should quarterly report to the government. Now this becomes kind of an Inspector Raj where the government will dictate the terms for the private companies. Okay, so these are some of the observations done by the High Court of Punjab and Haryana, and it has squashed the act called Haryana State Employment of Local Candidates Act 2020. Okay, now what is the analysis that you should do is, see, the analysis part comes here. All right, there are other states which have also similar laws that have been enacted. For example, you have Andhra Pradesh and Jharkhand. These states have also enacted such acts which favors state local population. Okay, however, these issues are also still in court, they are being decided. So I hope this decision will set the precedent for the High Courts of Jharkhand and Andhra Pradesh to take a call on squashing these laws as well. Okay, the reason is, see, private companies should be allowed to work on the basis of merit as well as on the basis of the innovation and creativity. when the government starts interfering in their working, then the private companies and their operations will get affected. The second aspect that what we are looking at is, see, when we take labor, when we look at labor, there is two types of labor. One is migrant population, another is local population. Okay, so there are two parts. Migrant population will be ready to work for low pay for long durations. Okay, they are ready to work for low pay and long durations. Local populations basically have better bargaining power. Okay, better bargaining power. Now, a private company will always look to employ migrant population because they can exploit them. That is, they can make them work for longer hours for lower pay. Yes or no? So, if they are able to exploit them, all the governments are focusing on this part of the laborers. Okay, what if the government focuses on this part? What if the government now provides migrants benefits as well as protection as well as bargaining power? If the government can promise benefits, protection and bargaining power to migrant population, then the migrant population will also come at an equal level to local population. Now, when migrant population and local population become equal, then the private companies will not be biased in employing either of them. Okay, so it is always better for the government to focus on improving the benefits, the protection as well as the bargaining power of the migrant population, rather than trying to create a protectionism. This is a protectionism strategy for local population. Okay, provide the migrant population also the bargaining power so that they also can demand their rights. This will create parity amongst the migrant and the local population. So now the private companies will not have any type of way to exploit the migrant population, but to employ local population as well as migrant population. This should be the way forward. Okay, because protectionism will always lead to son of the soil doctrine, that is providing more and more favorability to local population, and this local population will result in regionalism, and this regionalism will result in extreme regionalism. And as you know, extreme regionalism is against the spirit of the constitution. It affects the unity and integrity of the nation. And this son of the soil movement itself is in breach of Article 14 and Article 19 of the constitution. So as much as possible, we need to remove this concept of son of the soil, and we need to recognize the labor market as one labor market, that is the Indian labor market. And this requires all the states to come up with uniform policies. Okay, this needs to happen, this can happen if we treat the migrant population as productive assets. This happens only if we treat the migrant population as productive assets and provide them benefits, protection and security. Okay, this is the only way out. Okay, so instead of overly trying to focus on the local population, by worrying about the migrant population, we need to bring them on par with local population, so that at the end of the day there has to be no discrimination between local and migrant population. That is the way forward. Okay, so these were some of the issues of the day, and I hope you are understanding the different perspectives and analysis that I am trying to bring in several issues. It may be international relation, it may be polity, it may be even science. In every issue that I talk about, I purposely bring different type of analysis so that it helps you to create a line of thought. Okay, that thought or thinking is what is very important for your UPSC, both for prelims and mains. So I want you to start thinking. I want you not only to keep reading. Okay, so reading is important, but if you have to score marks, that reading has to translate into thinking, and this is my job, and this is what I am trying to do for you people. Okay, so if you have liked this session, please like, share and subscribe, and share it with as many friends as possible, so that it keeps me incentivized to come up with such initiatives and this issue on a daily basis. Thank you so much guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.